and we want to be sure that you have access to that later. We do have an exciting panel with us today, and we will have ample time for Q&A after we hear from them. So please use the chat function to raise your questions, and we will be monitoring those and do our best to get them in front of us. So once again, welcome. There is no better person to launch our discussion and moderate our panel today than Dean Clifford, a member of the Faith in the City planning team as well. And she's one of our communities and really the state's foremost experts in the field of early childhood education. She's also one of the most passionate voices for equity in education. So Dean, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. And I did not pay her for any of those comments because I didn't know she was going to make them. So as Sylvia has said, this is our 4th year of hosting these community conversations, trying to address the concerns we have for equity and how we can increase that in education and reduce the disparities in race or class-based achievement scores. If you saw the front page of the Winston-Salem Journal today, those disparities are starkly illustrated in the graph. Because while the emphasis was on the fact that we've lost a lot of learning in terms of the pandemic, what was immediately obvious if you looked at individual school scores was that there was quite a range in passing scores, ranging from, at 3rd grade reading, from 7.5% to 80%. All the scores above 60% were in predominantly white, well-resourced schools in well-resourced neighborhoods. And those scores that were particularly low were predominantly schools serving mostly children of color and low income. This should concern us all. So today we're trying to address some important questions. Where do the inequities and disparities begin? How soon does that start? How can we begin to address disparities that begin even before kids arrive at kindergarten? And what is the role of expanded high-quality pre-K in addressing these issues? There's quite a substantial body of research that demonstrates just how important the first 5 years of life are. And I was asked to sort of set the stage for what the panel is going to be talking about. Nurturing care and developmental stimulation during these early years are both essential if children are going to arrive at school really prepared to succeed in learning. The achievement gaps that show up in such a troubling way at 3rd grade are actually in place before kids even enter school. If they enter kindergarten behind, they have difficulty ever catching up. Early childhood education, therefore, is not only one of the wisest strategies in achieving educational excellence for all students, it's also a sound economic investment in the public good. And it is, I would say, an excellent fit for true American values. Let me touch on each of those very briefly. In terms of a foundation for education, the research shows that there are windows of opportunity in learning and brain development that occur most strongly in the early years. To cite a few examples, it's during these early years that the neural connections in the brain, that is the wiring of the brain, occurs in response to the stimulation and care a child receives. Secondly, the language development is almost miraculous during these years, but it is directly related to the amount of language that children are hearing from the adults in their life. Thirdly, in terms of social and emotional development, the keys to preventing aggressive and violent behavior and affecting appropriate and effective social relationships lie in the nurturing and responsive care a child receives in these early years. And finally, as you'll hear from a pediatrician, excellent nutrition, preventive health care, these set the stage for a lifetime of good health and fewer major chronic health challenges. Secondly, economic investment. The research has shown time and time again that if a child is in a high quality program, every dollar invested brings eventual savings of $7 to $13, because children that are in that kind of good start not only stay in school longer, but they earn more, they pay more taxes, they're less likely to commit crimes, and a host of other great benefits. So early education contributes to the development of a productive 21st century workforce. You'll hear more about that from a business person. Early childhood programs also stimulate our economy right now because they allow parents to work without worrying about the care and nurture of their children so much. It also really creates a number of programs that employ people and buy a lot of supplies. And finally, it's a great fit for American values that stress the importance of family, the value of education, equal opportunity for all, and good civic engagement in creating strong systems of service. If we really mean those things, we need to put the money where our mouth is. The cost of the current fragmented system of early care and education is predominantly paid for by parents. Now, right away, that tells you many parents cannot afford a high quality program for their children, no matter how much they want it. And we're going to focus today on one piece of this system, making a high quality, now listen to that word, that's really important, high quality pre-K program available for every youngster. Not just some classroom that calls itself pre-K, but one that is offering the very best in terms of quality. Because we know that children that have high quality pre-K have greater gains in vocabulary, math, and early literacy than those that don't. We are not doing so well. Currently in our county, we have an inequity in terms of the assigned slots that we have in our community. Only 27% of the 2,700 eligible children in our county are actually placed in these programs. The state average is 47%, and heavens to Betsy, our next door neighbor Guilford has 67% of children in the assigned slots. How come we got so left behind? And then secondly, it's important to note that the reimbursement paid for North Carolina pre-K doesn't cover the true cost of high quality. And not only that, but childcare subsidized rates are much lower in this county than almost any other county. They are only 2/3 of the rate of Guilford County. How can a program offer quality if it doesn't have sufficient funding? So today in advance, let me quickly thank our panel. You're going to hear 4 different perspectives on the imperative of making sure we have high quality pre-K for every child. One is Mark Owens, who is the president CEO of Greater Winston-Salem Incorporated. You may know that as the Chamber of Commerce. He is going to speak to us by video, which is a new for us. So we're hoping Sylvia has no tech problems as she does it. He will give his perspective as both a business leader and a parent of young children. We're delighted to have Malashay Woodbury, who is the chair of our Board of Education and an educator herself. She'll help us make the link of pre-K as a foundation for school success. Dr. Leah Erickson has stepped in graciously to a cover for Kathy Paling, who is doing something important. She is in a required meeting today to set up the plan for vaccinating our K-12, our 5 to 11 age children in the county, and she couldn't get out of that. And Leah, who is a pediatrician at Novant Walltown Pediatric Practice, was quick to say she would be glad to fill in. And finally, we have Mercedes Fajardo, and I'm sure my Spanish didn't do that justice, but she is well credentialed in both Panama and North Carolina and the United States as an early childhood educator, and can speak not only to the importance of pre-K, but particularly what that means for Hispanic children in our community, 30% of our students. We will then have a summary provided, a pull together of it all by Leslie Mullinex, who is the program coordinator for pre-K Priority, and she brings both a business and social work background, so she can really speak to the need for pre-K for both families and employers. So I'm going to hand it right over to you in that order. Let's start with Mark's video. Thank you.
Is so important.
Is this better?
For our residents in Forsyth County? As you're hearing today in the conversation, we're learning about pre-K through the pre-K priority, and special thanks to Bob Fickham and the great work that he and his team are doing in this community is rallying around. But it's also exciting to hear that we have a lot of students in pre-K here in Forsyth County right now, but we have some work to do on the quality side and making sure it's continuing to be accessible and affordable for all. Why is pre-K important to the business community? Because those are our future business owners, our future leaders, and our future elected officials. And at the 4-year-old time in their lives, they're learning to read, they're just learning how to grow, and to have that strong foundation, getting ready to go into kindergarten and first grade will help them be able to up our scores for 3rd grade reading and help them grow and learn for the future. So we, Greater Winston-Salem Inc., our businesses are behind pre-K priority. We have it written in our strategic plan, in our legislative agenda. We're advocating for it at the state and local level. And we believe that investing in our young people and investing in our leaders of tomorrow is the best investment that we can make. So thanks for letting us be a part of the conversation.
Okay, before we start the next round, let me just say that while we had some tech problems there, I hope you could hear the very strong statement that for business, they feel that investing in the early years is of vital importance if they're going to be able to find the employees they need. We know that right now jobs are going unfulfilled, partly because people can't get the care they need for their children, or they're worried about vaccinations and safety, but they are also finding a dearth of those with the skills needed to fill these new jobs in the
Hey, Mary, Chuck,
Thank you.
need to get,
We do ask everyone to be sure to mute your audio. Thank you.
Okay, let's go. Shay, would you start us off from the education?
Thank you, Ms. Clifford. And first, I would just like to thank Norwood Baptist Church for this outstanding platform to connect, I believe, in a very authentic and loving way with the community to make sure that the children and our families are connected to the many great resources in our community. I am definitely an educator for over 20 years. And what I will tell you that I know more now than definitely I could even imagine my first year as a teacher is that schools cannot do it alone anymore. Without platforms like this and other organizations partnering with public school districts, we will continue to have results that, as Ms. Clifford talked about at the beginning of this session, the grave disparity and achievement gap. So I would like to, definitely continue to encourage this community to support public school education in any way that we can, and to support other entities that support our children in the community. So I would like to first say that I am a product of pre-K, and I remember distinctively going to pre-K, and not only did it help to give me great foundation from an academic standpoint, but it helped me to become a more sociable being. My parents sent me to pre-K and I couldn't spell my name. It's Malishay, 3 syllables. Trying to spell that as a little girl was very, it was belaboring, to say the least. And it took me just a little while to get to be able to spell my name. But when I was able to spell my name, my mom and dad were so happy for me. And I just remember just the fondness of going to pre-K and being able to take a nap, the great food they had. So because of that initial experience, by the time I got to public school, I was a happy child around that kind of system and structure because I had been acclimated to it in pre-K. So I definitely firsthand experience, even now as a 47-year-old woman, have fond memories of being in pre-K and know how important it was for my own development. And so as a school board member, what I will tell the community is that school districts are financed based on state allotment per student, and we get $0 for pre-K. I never questioned my parents how I was able to go to pre-K, how was that afforded? And I really still don't know how my parents afforded to send me to pre-K, but I think a lot of people in the community think that, the dollars may come from possibly the state to public schools to finance pre-K, but it doesn't. And so any public school system that's able to fund pre-K, generally it's through some kind of philanthropic partnership or some partnership outside of how we are regularly funded. And so we're, very blessed in this community because pre-K is a priority to have had dollars come through Project Impact, which is a Winston-Salem Foundation initiative. And we've been able to fund about 21 pre-K classrooms. We definitely see the impact of our pre-K classrooms that have also empowered us to have pathway to FIRST, we even have a pathway to K, a pathway to 1, a pathway to 2 that we offer here in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools to along the way to that 3rd grade pivotal point, that gateway, provide necessary support for our students. And so I think from a school board perspective, we are definitely, on board with pre-K. And what I would tell you is that when the Winston-Salem Foundation made us aware that time had lapsed to where, it was time for us to kind of take the baton and kind of run with pre-K and how it's, kind of funded in our community. The board did, I think, rise to the occasion. And some of you may know that the school board did pay for those pre-K classrooms. We had to allot about $700,000 more from our fund balance to continue to support pre-K, in addition to some other dollars that we had to expend for pre-K. So I think from the school district's perspective, we realize obviously the impact of pre-K and early learning. And I look forward to working with the school board to continue to figure out how this school board may have to make some hard choices around funding pre-K, which means something else can't be funded in order for us to fund pre-K. But we know that, without pre-K, there is definitely a gap in some children being able to achieve versus others, right? And so the last thing that I would say before I turn it over is just really more so from the heart that maybe it is from the head. But, I don't want to miss this opportunity to help the community to understand that anytime you see the level of inequity by way of those scores 7% to 80%, that is not by osmosis, unfortunately. There are some things that as a community, as neighbors, as humans, we have to recognize is creating these inequities. And are we courageous enough to confront these inequities in our community, which unfortunately, we know in public school education, we can either talk about the fish or the system. And the system is based on structures that unfortunately Black children, brown children, poor children suffer from. And what we know, particularly in public school system, is that Black children bear the burden of academic inequities, absolutely. And I think we just have to recognize that as long as we don't confront the systematic structures that prevent children from learning, then we'll continue to have these conversations around why are some children learning and some are not. And I just would like to, really encourage this community and the folk on this call to continue to look at the systematic structures that create these educational inequities. So we can talk about pre-K, and I think that's a good start. But I think we also need to talk about the why behind so many Black and brown poor children not having access to pre-K, other than, well, they just don't have it, right? So I look forward to the conversation for the remaining of the time with the other speakers and those whom are on the call. And again, appreciate this opportunity to speak before you.
Thank you. Dr. Erickson.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit from my perspective and what we're seeing in the pediatric world. And when I saw the article in the paper this morning with the disparities between the schools and the reading scores, it is heartbreaking. And seeing that type of inequity, I really think is unacceptable for our community. And I'm really grateful that we're having this conversation, and hopefully we can address some of the structural barriers that Ms. Woodbury was mentioning. And I think also coming out of COVID, I've noticed some gaps and widening in disparities in physical, emotional, social, educational health of my patients, even in the early childhood years. I have patients in that early childhood and preschool age who have gained so much weight that they are considered to have obesity at this age due to spending COVID sedentary, not having opportunities to play outside, not having access to healthy nutrition. We've talked a lot about how the impact of social isolation has affected teenagers. And I've seen that impact also on young children, that we know that this is a critical age for them to be able to play with other children, especially in a supportive environment such as pre-K. And they're not able to do that. They haven't been able to do that. We've seen developmental delay. They haven't had access to the same type of early intervention services during COVID. And we really need to start focusing on this so that these children don't have a lifetime of inequity related to not having access to a supportive environment during COVID. Some of the things that I've noticed in my clinic for children that do have the opportunity to go to pre-K, I have a lot of patients who kind of have borderline language development skills and social skills that come in for their 4-year-old checkup. They're not able to talk to me. They're not able to answer questions. They have some language delays. And for the families that are able to enroll them in pre-K, when I see them the next year for their kindergarten appointment, a lot of them really have blossomed. They can talk, they can answer questions, they talk about their friends, they enjoy school, they're excited about going to kindergarten, they feel confident in the skills that they've developed and their ability to function in a school environment. And every family that I talk to whose child has gone to pre-K really has shared these stories about the impact that pre-K has had on their children and how much better equipped they are to enter kindergarten. Some of the patients, I can tell walking in the room whether they've gone to pre-K or not when I see them for their 5-year-old checkup, and their ability to talk to an adult that they don't know. I know that the kindergarten teachers notice that also. And I wanted to share a little bit about what I hear from families about barriers to getting their children into pre-K or Head Start. Number one, there aren't enough slots. And so families have said, well, I tried, I'm on the wait list, they didn't get in, they're gonna have to wait until kindergarten. Number two, I think that the system is not always easy for families to know how to apply, where to apply, what resources they have available, what schools offer it. And so helping them to navigate that system is tricky. And then the third is the biggest reason that I hear from families as to why their children aren't able to attend pre-K is transportation, that we aren't able to provide transportation to children to Head Start or pre-K, and for families that, you know, their mom might be working during the day or might not drive, she doesn't have a way to get them to school. And so I think that that's an opportunity for us to think of a creative way to help all children be able to get to pre-K. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Erickson. Mercedes, we look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to thank the opportunity to address you some of the insights regarding early childhood education. And I would like to thank Ms. Dean for giving me that opportunity today. So why do I think that pre-K is important for all 4-year-olds? Well, what came to my mind is what Frederick Douglass once stated. It is easier to build strong children than to mend broken men. So I believe that pre-K is laying the groundwork for a successful future to ensure that we are raising strong children. And we know from research that early childhood education helps, is the base of lifelong learning and learning abilities, including cognitive and social development. Also, it helps earning higher grades, lifelong enthusiasm for reading and learning. Also, we know that high quality early childhood education help children to develop and improve attention span, which can lead to more productivity in their adult careers. Also, it helps prevent the achievement gap by building the cognitive and social skills necessary for school readiness. It also helps to prevent the achievement gap by building cognitive. And it's an essential building block of a child's future success. And in conclusion about this, why it's important, I can tell you that the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization states that early childhood education helps the development of a child's social, emotional, cognitive, and physical needs in order to build a solid and broad foundation for lifelong learning and well-being. Also, I was asked from the point of view of a Latino, how does early childhood education impact the Latino children? It is the same, but also because of the language barrier, we need to be more mindful of their specific needs. So many studies determined that Latino children who had attended either setting public school pre-K or center-based care evidence above average proficiency on pre-academic and social behavior skills upon entering kindergarten. Also, they had fewer teenage pregnancies. They were more likely to have graduated from high school. They were more likely to hold a job and have higher earnings, and they committed fewer crimes. Also, they were able to own their own home and a car. Even though all those research evidence states that, we still, according to the data provided by the Foresight Promise Committee Education Report, we'll still see that the Latino children are below grade level, almost at MOY at the beginning of the year, middle of the year. So that tells us that we need to do more. We need to do more for these children. And how can we do that? Well, by supporting the pre-K families so we can improve our communities. And then for decades of research have proven that quality early learning and care programs are a smart investment, talking about the economic point of view. And this was by economist James Heckman. He has demonstrated that early interventions can break the cycle of poverty for multiple generations. Like I speak with Ms. Odette, if we can only reach one child, we will be reaching all the generations that come after him. Parents do better, children do better, and when those children become adults, their children also do better. Here at the Latino Community Center, we have been blessed to be a part of that change. We know that the path to high school graduation begins in infancy and requires the engagement of the whole family in the journey. So we make space for students, parents, volunteers, and community partners to work together because we know that we cannot do this work alone to keep the children in that path. In collaboration with different partners, we have been able to help and continue to help children to be ready for school setting. We have summer programs and a year-round early childhood early childhood education program and tutoring after school that is aligned with the state Common Core standards in North Carolina. Also, we provide support by educating parents in many ways. We teach and provide technology so they can help their children at home and support state curriculum. We have partners with nutritionists that model and train parents to give a better nutrition to their family. As one of the speakers stated before, it's a collaboration of different entities so we can ensure that we are successful. We are conducting also workshops to model best practices in raising children to become lifelong readers. We have a library that is accessible to the children, parents, and students that attend the center. We are providing books to our families to create their own library at home to ensure that the little ones can develop the habit of reading. We have many celebrations as well to make sure that our little ones are exposed to the Latino roots. And we believe that educating parents is crucial because they're the ones that are going to have to change a set of mind of the importance of the pre-K program. Also, the same way as Ms. Woodbury, I am the result of a pre-K program. I am so grateful to my mother beyond words. I don't know if many know, but I come from the most violent city in the world. And thanks to my mother, which is an educator, and she had a vision, I've been reflecting on the importance of those early years when I was 4, and she sent me to a little preschool, and all those skills have been with me along the way. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because as being a Latino and as being as the result of that program and seeing where God had brought me to this place that we can make changes, it gives me more driven passion to believe in what the initiative that you are having in this forum to make sure that we move forward and make changes, the necessary changes to make it a successful, the pre-K priority here in North Carolina. And thank you for this opportunity. And I hope that we can continue to do more to make this program be successful for the little ones that will be coming ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to pause just a minute before Leslie begins to kind of catch us up on where we are and ask Teresa, perhaps she can, as the coordinator for the school system of pre-K services, we refer to how fragmented the early childhood system is. She might be able to clarify the fragmentation in funding. As we've heard from Shay, the regular school system budget does not include pre-K. So how are you all offering pre-K, Teresa? Where's the money coming from?
Well, first, I would like to say thank you so much for inviting me to participate. And I'm just so excited about this initiative and what's in store for the children of Forsyth County. In the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, we have to be pretty creative with having funding to pay for our pre-K programs. Not only do we use the Project Impact dollars that were mentioned, which we will no longer receive Project Impact funds after this year. We also have Title I funds that our Title I director, she places, it's called a set aside amount of money to cover the cost of pre-K. We also use NC pre-K dollars. And Dr. Clifford mentioned early on that we don't have enough pre-K, NC pre-K slots coming into our community in comparison to other communities in North Carolina. And so it's really been really creative. We have to blend and braid our funding wherever possible. And with some of the funding, it's basically covering the staff salaries and benefits. And I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't mention Head Start. We also received Head Start dollars for pre-K as well. So we have to be very good stewards of the money that we have, because not only are we paying salaries and benefits, we also have to cover the cost of our formative assessments, our curriculum, instructional supplies, whether it's consumables or replacement of furniture and materials. So seeing that our county is looking forward to having universal pre-K, and there is an enormous cost to that, but I'm glad to hear that the conversation talked about the return on investment. It is time for us to put our money where our mouth is. I heard someone say, and I'm excited because I do believe that all children in Forsyth County should be in a high quality pre-K environment. I do believe that it starts at birth or in utero, that we've got to rally around as a community the importance of early childhood and child care. So it's not just one agency or the schools district saying, hey, we need to have high quality pre-K. That is a huge initiative in our county, that pre-K is important. And this is what children learn in pre-K: social skills, all of the developmental domains, cognitive, language, physical, and also being able to communicate with each other.
Thank you, Teresa. That's a
You're
great
welcome.
segue and sets the stage for Leslie to tell us about pre-K priority. Leslie, you're on if you want to unmute and go.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Faith in the City for asking us to be a part of this program, and your continuing efforts to educate and mobilize our community. So thank you. And I'm going to try to screen share, see if this works. Give me just a second. Okay, so if you would first look at this screen and check out the common denominator that you maybe can see from these iconic images of people and things. You may likely know most of these, but I'll briefly name them. There's the Starbucks coffee cup, the Denver Broncos team, the King, otherwise known as LeBron James, if you follow NBA basketball, and the Alamo. So have you guessed it? If not, it's all cities that have universal pre-K. And if you look at those cities, you will see that they represent a very diverse mix of people, cultures, and politics across our country. And they have each figured out a way to make pre-K an option for all their families. So if they can do it, I know we can do it. I'm missing a slide here. It's not going to let me show you one of the slides I had. So what I'm going to just speak to really quickly is where we started with the pre-K priority. If you're not familiar, and probably a lot of you are that are tuned in today, but that started really back in 2014 to explore a way to look at universal pre-K based on similar initiatives that were happening in Durham, Asheville, Mecklenburg counties, and looking at how we could do something that was similar. Starting in 2017, there was a more formal charter. There was a pre-K steering committee and work groups that started in earnest. And then we had the support of over 80 different organizations in the last couple of years that have participated in this work, or they've supported us in some way. The Pre-K Priority Steering Committee has been working hard with these work groups since 2017 on a lot of different ways to move this forward. They've held community listening sessions. They've published reports of some of the findings and recommendations they've done. They actually did a feasibility study in conjunction with Foresight Futures to help us understand our current landscape. And then we started on a public education campaign. And so hopefully you saw some of those billboards about the future is 4 years old. And as we were kind of stepping into our next phase of public education, well, guess what happened? The pandemic. And so everybody had to kind of pivot, and we went to strictly online, and we did a webinar series for most of 2020 just to try to stay in touch with folks. The great thing was that ended up leading us to the formation of an early childhood education task force. Because in order to put all those good ideas and recommendations into action that have been formulated in the last 4 to 5, 6 years, we needed the help and the support of a broader and diverse set of Forsyth County citizens. Earlier this year, our county, our city, and our Board of Education and superintendent leaders, they joined together with 57 other local organizations to sign a declaration of support in resolution to form an early education childhood task force. And this is in the process of starting. It's already begun in June. They are in the learning and understanding phase, as you can see there in the beginning. Because we have such a wide, diverse group of folks that are stakeholders, some of them aren't as aware of pre-K. So they're still learning and getting oriented to what this means and why all of the things you've heard the prior speakers talk about, why these things are important. We'll be entering the development and planning stage very soon in November. And then from there, we'll go into the deciding and recommendations. And then we plan by the end of the spring in 2022 to have a proposal and a plan that will really lay out an expanded framework for a high quality pre-K system in Forsyth County. And that system will build on what we already have here, which are the public school setting, the private childcare centers that we have, the publicly funded programs like Head Start and NC Pre-K. And I wanted to just say from its inception, the pre-K priority has really championed high quality because of the research that shows that it helps children not only to succeed in school, but in life. And several of our speakers have mentioned that. The long-term effects over the life course are really borne out in us following longitudinal studies to see that children do better in life if they've had pre-K. And a critical component of those results are, it has to be high quality. You may as well not do it if it's not high quality. And a part of high quality is equitable opportunities across all of those landscape places that children go. The current public school system data, as Shay pointed out earlier, show the persistent disparities in third grade reading scores, and especially among children of color and those coming from economically disadvantaged situations. And we know those are not unique to Forsyth County, but we also know that they are a product of systemic failures to address many social and racial inequities. The KB Charitable Trust has been helping us in this journey to make sure that we are addressing the equity issues. And in doing that, they've generously funded 2 grassroots groups that have come along aside us this year. And you just heard from one of them, Miss Mercedes at Latino Community Services, and then also Action for Equity. And they are really helping bring parent voice to this discussion and help to hear about lived experience, some of the barriers they're facing, and ways that they would like to see their children enrolled and feel safe about a universal pre-K program. And then lastly, what we know this all hinges on is funding. And if you've been listening to the news in any way, shape, or form in the last 6 months, you know that there's quite a bit of money that's been planned, especially towards educational initiatives that are not only at the national level, but the state and local level. And most of that also is in line to some degree with the pandemic. And I'll just touch on these briefly. For the national and federal level, the administration's Build Back Better legislation shows that if this bill gets passed that they're working on, we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see if it does, because universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds would be a part of that. Now, that would be over a course of years that it would be rolled out, but we know that it would build on what we already have. Again, a landscape of diverse providers. And then at the state level, the American Rescue Plan funds for early childhood have come in a couple of forms of buckets of money. The $8 million you see there at the top, that's a child care stabilization grant. And that really can go to any of the licensed providers across the state. If they're licensed and they're serving children, they can apply for these grants to help not only for some of the infrastructure and the capital they need, but also for hiring teachers. That $5 million mark, that's another bucket of money that the NC General Assembly has to allocate, but basically it is for helping increase the subsidies that families need in order to have high quality care. And then also for some workforce compensation, because we know, as was mentioned earlier, that we don't have teachers entering this field because we're not paying them enough. So this could be some money to help lift that. And then the final piece on the state level, I won't go into deep detail, because if you've been watching any of these Faith in the City sessions, you know about the Leandro case. And it's all pending. We know there's $5.6 billion that is supposed to be allocated over a number of years. The first group of funding would be this next year in the governor's budget. It has been allocated. But as usual, we have some disagreement in the House and the Senate. So they're working to see where they can come together on a plan for that. And then locally, I'll just mention quickly that both our city and county have been given generous American Rescue Plan funds. And those at the county are about 54 million. And people are already applying for grants for those. I think the deadline was in August, but there's going to be a second round of those. And what our hope is with this early education task force, that we'll be at a point in the spring of having a more formalized plan, that maybe that funding stream could be part of what helps us move forward a universal pre-K system here in Forsyth County. So that really wraps it up. I think the only other thing I would say is we had mentioned ways to advocate. Right now, I would say just stay tuned. Please be watching and supporting what you're hearing going on in terms of anything related to pre-K. We may need some help, especially in the spring, when we come to a point where we're trying to really have city and county leaders support the plan that is put forward. So we will stay in touch, and you can also stay in touch on our Pre-K Priority Facebook page and our website for more information. And thank you again.
Thank you, Leslie. And while you're taking your screen down, we will be glad to entertain any questions or comments that are made. I do want to be sure that everybody on the call is aware of the tremendous difference in funding. Even though our schools don't have the funding they need, the difference between what a teacher in K-12 is paid and what a teacher in most early childhood programs, especially private ones, are paid is vast. And most of them don't have benefits. And so in addition to the teaching shortage that we're struggling with at K-12, we have an immense teaching shortage in terms of people who are adequately trained and compensated in the early year system. So just be aware of that. One of my surprises in the early days of Smart Start, when we did a survey with childcare providers, was how many of them, over 25%, received such low pay that they qualified for things like food stamps and Medicaid. Some of that has improved, but not much. So we've got a long way to go if we want to offer really high quality early childhood services. Okay, questions, comments, unfinished areas of consideration. Sylvia, how about while we wait and see if there are any more questions, would you kind of give us a high five about how these people might help move this needle forward, and also tell us about next month's program?
I believe there was a hand raised. Ingrid?
Yes.
Did you have-
Yes, I have a question. Leslie, do you have a list of all your stakeholders who are signed on as task force members? And can you share that?
Absolutely. Yes, I'd be glad to. Do you mind dropping your
Sure.
email in the chat, and I will get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank
In
you.
Leslie, in fact, if other people are interested, if you will make sure that we have a copy, we can post that on the Faith in the City website as well.
Great. Be glad to. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the same thing, because we also want to be sure that we leave you each time with something that is an action step. And I hope that now you can see something on your screen. Let me know if that's up there. But we wanted to put together just a little bit of information on key points that we've talked about today. And we want your voice to be heard, particularly at the state level. As Leslie said, there are key funding opportunities there, and particularly with the Leandro case, in the news and in the decision point in the coming weeks. We want you to have this information and know how to email or write your state legislators and to support pre-K priority as well. I think really a key focus with the state now is very important. And as Leslie said, as the Early Education Task Force gets a plan together and really focuses in the coming months, we will share the information on our Facebook page and through our Faith in the City contact so that you will have this information going forward. Any other questions? Well, once again, we wanted to thank our panel members for your very good comments and questions and really inspiring personal notes. Really, I enjoyed hearing from several of you the difference that excellent pre-K and early childhood education had made in your lives. And we just need to make that a reality for many others in our community. We hope that you will join us in December for what we feel will be a continuation of extremely important information. Several people have referenced the concern about the disparity in third grade reading scores. And nothing is more obvious than that as we are looking at going ahead. And our topic next month will focus on that. Our topic is going to be rising to the task of meeting the third grade reading goal of 90 by 2025. Our school system has some bold goals, and we need to support those. And our guest will be Tricia McManus, our school superintendent, who will be outlining the school's literacy framework and plans to meet that goal. We will also have Dr. Paula Wilkins, Executive Director of Project Impact within the school system and our community, and the system lead for the Reading Warriors program. We're excited to tell you about the Reading Warriors program, and also joining us will be Esheron Monroe Johnson, Executive Director of Read, Write, Spell, who's a partner in this program. You might have seen a reference to it in today's article as well, but thus far, 60 volunteers have been trained for this program, which will put people in the schools to work one-on-one with kindergarten and first grade students. The system and its partners are striving for 400 community volunteers. So this is a key way that you can get involved in the coming months. And so if you'll join us on Tuesday, December 7th, to hear from these key presenters, you'll learn more about the Reading Warriors program and what our system is doing to try to now have the community will to address these disparities. Thank you again for being part of Faith in the City today. We have put in the chat information about our Facebook page and how you can access that. We almost have 100 people on our Faith in the City Facebook page. And so we want to ask many of you to join us in that and learning and sharing information in that way. We also will be posting recordings of this session and previous sessions, a reminder that they are posted on our Knollwood Baptist Church website, which is also in the chat. On behalf of all of us on the planning team for Faith in the City, we thank you for your time today. We thank you for your interest and for beginning to really coalesce as a community. Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
I failed to mention that we leave this line open for a few minutes to have what we call our parking lot chat. If you want to stay along for a few more minutes, we know our presenters may have elsewhere to go, but if you want to stay on for a few more minutes and share information with the participants, we're happy to keep the line open for a few minutes. Thanks for your patience with my technical difficulties today. I learned something.
I just want to thank all the speakers. I think we all have learned a lot today, and hopefully we'll be doing some actions to make sure that everything that we have spoken has a voice and changes are made.
Many
Thank you.
thanks to you, Mercedes, and I've already thanked Shay. I was getting ready to thank the rest of them. Some of them were off, but for Leslie and for Leah, we're grateful.